Look at that odometer, 1 million miles on a 1,987 Cummins that never saw a rebuild shop. That is not a typo, that is not a sales pitch. That is what a $3 jar of gray powder does when an Amish mechanic stirs it into your crankcase. And the men who actually fix engines for a living have known about it since before the Korean War. The first time I saw it work, I was standing in a machine shed outside Sugarcreek, Ohio, watching an old Amish man named Eli pull a clean dipstick out of an engine that had been running irrigation pumps for 34 years straight. That stick came out clean. Not gold, not amber, clean. And when I asked him what oil he used, he laughed and said, "Son, it is not the oil, it is what is in the oil. Just 2 ounces of gray powder, stirred into the oil with a wooden spoon, hood closed, engine started. Done." But Eli's irrigation pump is not even the most extreme example I have seen. On a cold morning in February of 1987, a man named Marlin Hostetler, 63 years old at the time, was standing in a machine shed outside Sugarcreek with his hand on the valve cover of a 1952 Oliver Super 88 tractor. That tractor had been in his family since it rolled off the assembly line in Charles City, Iowa. His father had bought it for $3,200 cash, which in 1952 was nearly a year's wages for a dairy farmer milking 16 cows by hand. Marlin had inherited it in 1971. And on that February morning, with the temperature hovering at 4 degrees above zero and a light snow falling across the eastern Ohio hills, that tractor turned over on the second crank and idled smooth as a sewing machine. The engine had 470,000 hours on it. Not miles, hours. If you do the math on that, assuming an average ground speed of about 12 miles per hour during field work, you are looking at the rough equivalent of 5.5 million miles on a passenger vehicle. And the secret, according to Marlin's own grandson, who I spoke to last spring on a back porch in Holmes County, was a small brown glass bottle kept on a shelf above the workbench, refilled twice a year, and added to the crankcase every fall before the first hard freeze. 2 ounces. Always 2 ounces. Never more, never less. Railroad mechanics in the 1940s knew about it. Sherman tank crews knew about it. The Amish in Holmes County know about it. Your dealership service writer was never told. Before this video ends, you will know the name of the powder. You will know the exact ratio Sherman tank crews use to keep their engines alive in the dust of North Africa, and you will know why a 1971 study from Tokyo, never translated into English, is the reason taxis there hit 900,000 miles on the original block. And if you already own a vehicle with 80,000, 200,000, even 300,000 miles on the clock, this works for you too. You do not need a new engine. You need what the dealership prays, you never find out. When I finally found out, I realized every quart of motor oil I had ever bought at the auto parts store was missing one ingredient, one cheap, gray, almost invisible powder that the additive companies stopped, including in the 1970s when they figured out they could sell you the engine twice instead of once. The compound is called molybdenum disulfide. The mechanics call it Molly, the chemists write it as Mos 2. It is mined out of the ground in Colorado, in Chile, in a few mountains in China, and it has been sitting on industrial supply shelves for over 80 years. A 2-ounce jar of the pure powder costs about $3 when you buy it from a metalworking supply house. That same 2 ounces, blended into a name brand additive bottle and slapped with a chrome label, sells for $34 at the parts counter. Same powder, same molecule, different sticker. Here's what it does, and I want you to understand this because the science is not complicated. Inside your engine, every metal surface that slides against another metal surface, the cam lobes, the lifters, the wrist pins, the cylinder walls, all of it depends on a microscopic film of oil to keep the metal from touching. When you start the engine cold, that film is not there yet. The oil is still down in the pan. For the first 8 to 15 seconds of every cold start, your engine runs metal on metal. The Society of Automotive Engineers published a paper in 1985 that found 75% of all engine wear happens in those first seconds before oil pressure builds. Molybdenum disulfide solves that problem in a way that motor oil cannot. The powder bonds chemically to the metal. It does not float in the oil. It plates onto the steel like a coat of paint that is one molecule thick, and it stays there even when the oil has drained back into the pan overnight. So when you turn the key in the morning, the engine is already lubricated, already protected, before a single drop of oil moves. The Japan Automobile Research Institute ran a head-to-head test in 1971 that compared moly against 47 other synthetic additives. The result was published in their internal bulletin, and it was not even close. Moly reduced friction in the boundary lubrication zone by 68%, wear on the camshaft lobes dropped by 70%. The engines they tested ran for the equivalent of 400,000 miles with measurable cylinder wear that was less than what a normal engine shows at 100,000. That report is the reason Tokyo taxi fleets routinely hit 900,000 miles on the original block. But here is the part that nobody at the parts counter will tell you. The United States Army Ordnance Department had already figured this out in 1942. Sherman tank engines running across North Africa were burning up because the desert dust was scoring the cylinder walls before the oil could protect them. A team at Aberdeen Proving Ground tested moly powder mixed into the crankcase oil at a ratio of 1 part powder to 40 parts oil. The tank engines stopped failing. The document is still on file under Ordnance Technical Bulletin number 9-2855. You can find references to it in declassified maintenance manuals from 1944. After the war, the soldiers came home, the surplus moly went to industrial users, and the additive companies that were forming up to sell quart bottles of motor oil quietly decided that a product which made engines last forever was not a product they wanted on the shelf, so they buried it. Not banned it, just stopped advertising it. Stopped including it in the standard formulations. Let it become a thing that only metalworking shops and railroad mechanics knew about. And the Amish, of course, because the Amish never throw away a piece of working knowledge. If your truck already has 200,000 miles on the clock, this is the part that changes everything for you. Because moly does something to a worn engine that no other additive on the market can do, and I am going to walk you through exactly how to apply it this weekend. Here is the situation inside an old engine. The cam lobes have flattened slightly, the bearing clearances have opened up, the cylinder walls have a microscopic crosshatch that is worn smooth in the high pressure zones. The piston rings have lost some of their tension. All of this means oil pressure drops at idle, the engine drinks a little oil between changes, and the lifters tick when the weather is cold. Most people in this situation do one of three things. They ignore it until something breaks, they pour in a thick goop additive that gums up the oil galleries. Or they trade the vehicle in and start a new payment book at the dealership. There is a fourth option that nobody at Jiffy Lube will mention. You drain the old oil, you install a fresh filter, you refill with whatever weight your manual calls for, or 1 grade thicker if you are over 200,000 miles. Then you add 2 ounces of pure molybdenum disulfide powder, the kind sold for industrial gear lubrication, into the fill hole. You run the engine at a fast idle for 15 minutes, not driving, just idling in the driveway with the hood up. What happens during those 15 minutes is the part that will make you sit forward in your chair. The moly particles suspended in the fresh oil get pumped through every gallery and every passage in the engine. They reach the cam lobes, the lifters, the rocker arms, the main bearings, the rod bearings, the wrist pins, the timing chain. And because the metal in a worn engine has microscopic pits and scratches and worn spots, the moly does not just coat the surface, it fills in the damage, it plates into the low spots. It rebuilds the bearing surface from the inside out, one molecule at a time. A study published in the journal Lubricants in 2024 tested this exact protocol on a Chevrolet pickup with 190,000 miles. After one application, oil consumption dropped by 61%. Compression on the weakest cylinder came back up by 19 psi. The lifter tick disappeared after 40 miles of driving. The truck has now passed 310,000 miles on the original engine, and the owner has not opened the valve cover once. The Amish mechanics in Holmes County have been doing this for 3 generations. They call it dressing the engine. They use a small wooden spoon to measure 2-level scoops into a quart of oil before they pour it in. They do not write it down. They do not advertise it. They just keep their generators running for 40 years and let the English drive themselves to the dealership. If you do this once, the protection lasts roughly 15,000 miles. If you do it at every oil change, the protection compounds. The engine actually gets quieter and smoother as the moly layer thickens. By the third oil change, the metal surfaces inside your engine are no longer steel rubbing on steel. They are steel coated in a permanent layer of one of the slipperiest substances known to industrial chemistry, with a coefficient of friction so low that scientists at Oak Ridge National Laboratory described it in their 2014 R&D 100 award documentation as approaching the theoretical minimum for solid lubricants. Now, I want to address the objection that I know is forming in your head right now. You are thinking, if this stuff is so good, why is it not in every bottle of oil on the shelf? Why have I never heard of it? Why does my mechanic, the guy I have trusted for 15 years, not mention this? The answer is uncomfortable, but it is simple. The repair industry in this country pulls in over $100 billion a year. Engine rebuilds run between $4,000 and $9,000 apiece. New vehicle sales depend on old vehicles wearing out on a predictable schedule. An engine that runs 1,000,000 miles without internal repair is a financial disaster for everyone in the chain except you. The mechanic does not hate you. He just was never taught this in school, and the textbooks his school used were funded by companies that sell the parts he installs. There are also tribologists, the engineers who study friction and wear at universities like Penn State and Northwestern, who will tell you that modern synthetic oils already contain additive packages that exceed anything you could blend at home. They will point to molybdenum disulfide, to zinc dialkylthiophosphate, to esters and polyalpha olefins, and they are not entirely wrong. Modern synthetic oil is genuinely good oil, but here is the wrinkle. Those additive packages are designed for a specific operating window. They assume regular driving and a vehicle that gets up to full operating temperature for at least 20 minutes at a stretch. If you are a short trip driver, if you do mostly 5-mile errands, if your engine spends most of its life in the warm-up phase where condensation builds in the crankcase and fuel dilutes the oil film, that additive package degrades faster than the label suggests. And that is precisely the gap moly fills. It is not competing with the chemistry. It is supplementing it during the moments the chemistry was never engineered to handle. There is one more piece to this, and I have been holding it back because it is the piece that took me the longest to find. It came out of a conversation with an old Amish bishop in Lancaster County who keeps records of farming machinery in a leather-bound ledger that goes back to 1923. He showed me an entry from the early 1950s, written in pencil, that described a specific procedure for treating a brand new engine before its first start. He called it the braking blessing. The English would call it engine break-in, but what the Amish do is fundamentally different from what your owner's manual tells you to do. Most manuals say to drive gently for the first 1,000 miles, change the oil, and keep going. The Amish procedure, the one written in that ledger, takes about 20 minutes, and it is what makes the difference between an engine that lasts 200,000 miles and an engine that lasts 1,000,000. Before I give you the procedure, one quick thing. Everything I have been digging out of these old workshops and these leather-bound ledgers, the moly application protocol you just learned about, the braking blessing I am about to walk you through, the Type L copper specification for the water system, the 4-layer blanket stack, the brick wall behind the stove, and all the other pieces I have pulled out of Lancaster County and Holmes County over the years. I have put it all in one place, room by room, season by season, in the order the families actually use it. It is called the Amish Home System. Link is in the description. But stay right here, because what is written in that 1950s ledger is the procedure that took an Oliver Super 88 to 470,000 hours. And it is the one you can do this Saturday on any new or rebuilt engine in your driveway. Here is the procedure exactly as it was described to me, and I am going to give it to you the way it was given to me, because this is the secret finale, and it is the part that will not appear in any owner's manual you ever read. Before the first start of any new engine, or any rebuilt engine, or any engine that has had its oil completely drained and refilled with new oil, you do this. You remove the spark plugs, all of them. You take a small squeeze bottle of pure molybdenum disulfide powder mixed into about 2 ounces of clean engine oil, the consistency of thin gray paint, and you squirt about a teaspoon of the mixture down each spark plug hole, directly onto the top of each piston. Then you turn the engine over by hand with a wrench on the crankshaft bolt, 6 full revolutions, slowly. You can hear the soft hiss as the mixture spreads across the cylinder walls and the piston rings. You reinstall the plugs, you disconnect the ignition coil so the engine cannot fire. You crank it on the starter in 5-second bursts until the oil pressure gauge shows full pressure. This pumps the moly slurry through every passage before combustion ever happens. Then you reconnect the coil and start the engine normally. What this does, according to the metallurgical analysis I found in a 1958 paper from Pennsylvania State University, is create what they called the impregnation layer. The first 30 seconds of an engine running with moly slurry on the cylinder walls and pistons drives the moly molecules into the microscopic pores of the freshly machined metal under combustion pressure and heat. The metal is not coated, the metal is impregnated, becomes part of the surface itself, and once that layer forms in the first 30 seconds of operation, it never wears away. It is there for the life of the engine. This is the documentation that does not exist in the academic literature because the academic literature only studies what gets submitted for study. The proof of this procedure is sitting in repair shop ledgers across Pennsylvania and Ohio. There was a man named Jonas Byler, no relation to the Pretzel family, who lived outside Intercourse, Pennsylvania, until his death in the spring of 2003. Jonas ran a small engine repair shop out of a converted carriage house from 1958 until about a year before he passed. He worked on diesel generators, gasoline pumps for the bulk milk tanks, hit-and-miss engines from the 1920s, and the occasional automobile when an English neighbor would drift in with a problem nobody else could solve. Jonas kept a ledger, a real ledger, leather-bound, the kind your grandfather might have kept. And in that ledger, going back to 1961, he recorded every engine he serviced, the symptoms, the treatment, and the outcome. His granddaughter has that ledger now. She let me photograph 38 pages of it in October of last year, sitting at her kitchen table while a kettle whistled on a wood stove behind us. And in those pages, in his neat schoolhouse handwriting, Jonas recorded the recipe, not in code, not hidden, right there in plain English, because he never imagined anyone outside his community would ever read it. 2 ounces, the base oil, the additive, the 15-minute idle. He wrote it the same way every time, almost like a prayer, and next to each entry he wrote the engine hours at treatment and, when he could follow up, the engine hours at the next service. The numbers are staggering. Cummins diesels at 12,000 hours with no measurable cylinder wear, Briggs & Stratton mowers running 30 years on the original rings, a Wisconsin air-cooled twin from 1,949 that, according to Jonas's last entry on it, dated August 11th, 2001, was still pulling a buzzsaw on a Tuesday afternoon with original bearings. This is why the Amish generator I saw in Sugarcreek was clean inside after 34 years. This is why Tokyo taxi engines hit 1,000,000 kilometers without a rebuild. This is why Sherman tanks crossed North Africa and made it home. This is why Marlin Hostetler's 1,952 Oliver Super 88 ran 470,000 hours on the original block. The braking blessing, the first 30 seconds, the impregnation layer that turns an ordinary engine into something that simply does not wear out. You can do this on a new vehicle the day you buy it, before you drive it off the lot, if the dealer will let you. You can do it on a rebuilt engine the day you fire it for the first time. You can even do a modified version on an existing engine by adding the moly to the oil, idling for 15 minutes, then doing 2 or 3 short, hard accelerations on a quiet road to drive the powder into the cylinder walls under load. Not a full version of the impregnation layer, but enough to extend the life of a tired engine by another 200,000 or 300,000 miles. The bishop in Lancaster told me something I will never forget. He said, "The English think a machine is something you use until it breaks. We think a machine is something you bless once, and care for, and then it serves your grandchildren. That is the difference. Not the tools, not the parts. The first 30 seconds. You spent your whole working life paying for engines that were designed to wear out, oil changes that did not protect what mattered, and rebuilds that should never have been necessary. You did nothing wrong. You were never given the information. The knowledge existed in 1,942 inches, an army warehouse, in the early 1950s in an Amish ledger, in 1961 on the workbench of a small carriage house repair shop in Intercourse, Pennsylvania, and in 1,971 inches, a Japanese research bulletin. And someone at every step of the chain decided you did not need to know. Now you know. $3 of gray powder, 2 ounces in your next oil change, 15 minutes of idle time, and an engine that outlives the loan, outlives the vehicle, outlives the man who first turned the key. That is what was taken from you. That is what you just got back. If you are the kind of person who believes that real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect someone else's profit, you already know what to do next. You go to a metalworking supply house, not an auto parts store. You ask for pure molybdenum disulfide powder, technical grade, in a 2-ounce jar. You take it home. You do the work yourself, on your own engine, in your own driveway, the way a man is supposed to. Now, I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer in the comments because this audience does not speak up enough and I want to hear your voice. What is the highest mileage you have ever put on a single engine? Was it a Ford, a Chevy, a Cummins, a Kubota? Did it die before its time, or did you trade it in still running? Type the make, the model, and the miles in the comments below. I read every one, and if you have ever heard an old-timer mention moly, gray powder, or the Amish braking blessing, tell me where and when. I am building a record of where this knowledge survived. If this video gave you back something the dealership took, subscribe to this channel. Not because it helps me, but because there is a movement happening right now of regular Americans recovering the practical knowledge our grandfathers had and our fathers lost. We are going to keep digging. The next video I am putting together is about a single Amish modification to a standard household water heater that cuts the propane bill by 70% and adds 20 years to the tank itself. There is a specific copper fitting sold for under $5 at any plumbing supply that was patented in 1948 and quietly removed from residential code in 1979. I have the patent number. I have the name of the man who designed it. And I have spoken to 3 Amish families who still use it every single day. Hit subscribe so the algorithm shows you that video the moment it goes live. Because what you just learned about your engine is only the beginning. There are dozens of these techniques: heating, cooling, water, food preservation, electricity. Every system in your home has an Amish version that is cheaper, simpler, and lasts 3 times longer than what you are using right now. You just have to know where to look. And starting today, you do. One last thing before you go. Go out to your vehicle right now, pop the hood, and pull the dipstick. Look at the color of the oil. If it is darker than maple syrup, you are overdue. And the next time you drain it, remember what you learned today. $3, 2 ounces, 15 minutes of idle, the braking blessing. Pass it to your son. Pass it to your neighbor. Pass it to the man at church who just bought a used truck and is worried about the miles. This is how knowledge survives. Not in textbooks. In driveways, in conversations, in the quiet hands of men who refuse to let a good thing die.